you'll try to connect with a woman and they'll be like so busy with their husband and their kids and their whatever they're doing, and they never make time for themselves. And I've heard that, like, they want to. I'll see them complain about it on social media, but then they don't do anything to really take the step. So how do you get them to take those steps, I guess?
I really think it's a shift in mindset first and foremost, because it can seem like, oh, it's another thing I need to do. It's another thing I need to fit in the schedule. It's something else that's going to be on the to-do list. That is not what I recommend at all. That is not actually sustainable. What I really recommend is, in the moments that you're doing the things that you need to do, that your family counts on, you want them done, you shift how you feel while doing them. So my initial guidance has nothing to do with scheduling something extra that takes time. It's not about a romantic getaway or a day at the spa or any of that. Those are all awesome, but they're not actually the things that create sustainable change. What creates sustainable change is learning to just bring a little more pleasure into what you're already doing. And in fact, I'll share how I did this in my own life, because I got to a point where I thought, okay, I've achieved so many goals. I went to medical school as a physician. I married this wonderful man. We had 3 of our 4 children at the time. I'd paid off my medical school loans, and I thought, oh, now I should feel fantastic. I've done everything. I've been so motivated, and it's all ticked off. But I didn't have that sense of satisfaction. And there was nothing wrong. I just had worked so hard, and I didn't feel like I was having an experience that made it worth it. And so I started just doing different things. I went to different trainings, spiritual trainings, more women's empowerment, a whole range. I took a dance class, different things. And what I eventually experienced is that when I was at a retreat or a workshop, I felt really alive and I had fun, and I connected with parts of myself that had been dormant. But when I got home, it just wasn't sustained. And then I worked on it so that when I was alone with my husband, behind closed doors, children asleep, the dishes done, but that doesn't happen very often. And so, that was a lot more enjoyable, but it still meant that most of my waking hours were kind of filled with a sense of responsibility for other people and all the things I had to get done. So I was determined to bring the juiciness into the everyday, which I really think is the key for people who are married, raising families, working. It's not great to compartmentalize pleasure. It needs to be in the day. And so I remember feeling really irritated by something my husband had said, and my children who weren't picking up the living room when I asked. And I was sauteing onions, wearing this kind of frumpy apron, and I was sauteing onions and I was stirring them, and I was getting my mood out on the frying pan and the onions. And then I realized, I'm going to be sauteing these onions for dinner either way. What if I enjoy it? And for anyone who cooks onions, whether you stir fast or super slow, they're going to cook the same. And so I put on some music that I enjoyed, and I started enjoying the smell and just how lovely it was to, be sauteing those onions, and my hips are moving a little bit. And I ended up just getting rid of this ugly apron, and I got a functional French maid's apron, so it's totally covered everything it needed to, so I wouldn't get stuff on me while I cooked. But it made this thing I've got to cook dinner, into this really fun activity. And I noticed that the better I felt, the more my kids were relaxed and polite. And it was a totally different thing for my husband to walk in the door after I'd had fun sauteing the onions. And so I just looked for ways to bring the good vibe, focusing on my enjoying it into the everyday. And it turns out everybody benefits.